Hi, I'm Steve Plate, and welcome to this edition of Nonprofit Spotlight. As you may know, Nonprofit Spotlight is a production of the Volunteer Advisory Committee here at Community Television, and every so often, as often as we can, we highlight the work of a nonprofit in Santa Cruz County. It's doing great work, and we continue to do that. I hope that you are staying safe. We, of course, are sheltering in place, so a lot of our programming now is done by video conference, but that is not preventing us from doing quality programming. And this is an example of that. What we have doing with this particular series of shows is to highlight nonprofits and see how their furtherance of their mission is being affected by the sheltering in place order and social distancing and that kind of thing. So we are delighted to have with us Rachel Kippen, the Executive Director of Odyssey. Rachel, welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's always great to have you here. And last week, we did the first show with Save Our Shores, and we had Catherine O'Day, who you know, who was a delight to have. And so we started the show as we will with you, but you've been to have you back. You're a terrific guest, but just tell our viewers who will see this programming a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Odyssey.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking, and thanks again for always highlighting the work of our local nonprofits, in particular our environmental nonprofits. It's so helpful. So I joined Odyssey in January of 2019 as the executive director. But prior to that, I'd been a partner when I'd worked at Save Our Shores. Save Our Shores and Odyssey do programming together where we take our students out onto the ocean and we teach them about marine science, and then they come back and they do a plastic pollution education program and a beach cleanup with Save Our Shores. So I was very fortunate to get to work with them for several years in that capacity. When I worked for the city of Watsonville, the city of Watsonville is also a big partner with Odyssey, and we work together for the stormwater pollution prevention programming. So every city is responsible to do education for your local community and residents to try to prevent stormwater pollution, what goes down your storm drains, making sure it's nice and clean and clear. And Odyssey has a unique niche of really trying to help students understand how significant that is. So I got to know, the organization from a few different angles, and also as a volunteer. I know you know about volunteering really well. You're such a huge volunteer in our community, and
I do a little bit about that. Yeah.
And so we got to do some volunteering for OSA before I joined as well.
Well, that's who we first met, of course, Save Our Shores and wonderful work, and you've done so many other great things in the community. Actually, you're one of the first volunteer coordinators for our Thanksgiving dinner, the Veterans Memorial Building, which was just terrific, and you did all the great work. But what I wanted to kind of get into is, and something I talked to Catherine about last week, the furtherance of your mission requires kind of some socializing, some community engagement, some gatherings of people to address the various challenges that we have for our National Marine Sanctuary. How is the sheltering in place order and the social distancing affecting your ability to really continue that mission and to get that great work done?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's been challenging, to say the least. We have a lot to be grateful for, but at the same time, it's in our mission that we do hands-on programming, right? The whole point is experiential, bringing out those kids, getting them on the water. For most of them, it's their very first time to the coast and ocean. And so being temporarily shut down, we've not been able to host the classes that we would be otherwise. Typically, our season runs from the beginning of March through mid-June in the spring, and we shut down the week of March 16th. So we'd only had a couple weeks of programming prior to having to temporarily close. And, that's a really big disappointment. A lot of our local classes, they're looking forward to it. It's the end of their year celebration for some of them. They work so hard to get out there. And,
of course.
So we won't be able to serve students, of course, during the shelter in place. And we have pivoted. I'm really proud of the work that we've done in the interim. We've sent out a message to all of our teachers on our list, basically saying, what do you need? How can we help you? We know that you're now suddenly responsible for all of this virtual programming. and what specifically are you looking for? Do you want to sign up other folks? And so we have, you know, a regular list of several hundred teachers, and then we got an additional about 85 community members sign up, parents, other informal environmental educators, and they really gave us great responses of different resources that they want, things that are really interactive. And so what we've been doing is sending out a weekly resource email to that list with all sorts of different things, different kinds of videos and activities related to ocean conservation. And so we'll continue doing that. But also we're very, very hopeful that we'll be able to have some in-person programming as well. There's nothing that compares to that, as you know.
Well, as you point out, you know, the shank of your season, March through June, and that's precisely when we're having the sheltering in place order. And is there any thought of maybe extending your season somehow to try to, you know, on the back end of the season, get some of these programs going that you weren't able to do really during your main season?
Yeah, we've discussed it. We're cautious at the current moment because, right, we had students that were going to come out this year that didn't get to come out, and some of those classes we're going to try to roll over to our next season and give priority as we can. I'm saying, like, oh, you missed your last year, so we'll really try to make sure your class gets in the fall. But that's assuming that we can safely do social distancing programming in the fall, which, based on guidelines, remains to be seen. As you know, we have the beautiful boat that we go on, and while we can think of some ways of being able to socially distance on the boat, what would that look like in terms of programming, having kids, you know, 6 feet apart, and how many kids? Usually we're doing groups of 30, but some of the guys
Sure,
12,
yeah.
you know, so that's pretty drastically different. And how are we going to get them, right? We pay for bus transportation for a lot of our students. And how are the buses going to work coming to the harbor to bring them? You know, are they going to be distanced? Bringing them into our education centers seems pretty unlikely for the fall, as we've talked about it. So there have been some conversations with groups like Save Our Shores. Maybe we do something like a hybrid program only on the deck of the boat, and then maybe we think of doing a beach cleanup, everything outside. But so much to be ironed out based on what our health officials tell us, you know, and what our school districts are allowed to do. That's another piece. You know, our field trip's going to be allowed for schools. There was lots of field trip bans at the end of the season, so
of course
we kind of we gotta still. It's been challenging as it has for everybody, of just being like, what's going to happen next, and then then you hear something, and then you hear another little thing, and then you hear another thing, and you're like, okay. Fingers crossed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge. You know, we had a couple of years back Dan Hafley on, your predecessor, and at the time Dan was talking about virtual sailing programs and the development of virtual instruction.
So Dan absolutely worked on virtual programming during his time at Odyssey, and there were several community members that helped make that possible, including Joyce Anderson, who helped create some very cool YouTube tutorials, kind of walking through the different things that we do on the boat. And so one of the things that we've talked about and have actually already experimented with a bit is doing having like one of our staff or an instructor go out and do things like a plankton tow. And we already actually did this in the Santa Cruz Harbor. It was pretty easy. And the staff can do that completely socially distanced, you know, just take the net and walk along the docks and scoop up some plankton and then go into our office and live stream the plankton that they find in the harbor. And potentially, if we did some sort of version of that on the boat, we could set up a Google Classroom kind of learning environment with some of our teachers. One of the challenging things is that, you know, virtual programming, I think, is really, really powerful and helpful if it's something that you're doing in a dynamic learning environment, right? You get to do some virtual programming and some in person and some in classroom and this and that. But now it's all virtual programming, which I feel like is really burning folks out. So really trying to be mindful of that as we communicate with our teachers.
So that's terrific, that virtual programming. So let me ask you, you know, you're the executive director, you know, you're working with your staff, you're developing a strategy as we move forward and what's going to happen throughout the summer and then into the fall. What is O'Neill Sea Odyssey going to look like in terms of pursuing their mission, being a partner in the stewardship of the National Marine Sanctuary as we kind of move forward into, as I say, the end of summer and fall?
Yeah, great question. So I guess the main thing that I want to say is that thanks to all of our supporters, we're going to survive this. I know a lot of nonprofits are sitting in situations where they're very fearful, us included, of what the future is going to look like. But because we have a strong base of supporters, we do feel very confident that we're going to be here, and that as soon as we have the ability to run programs in person, that we're going to be able to rise to the occasion. That's another challenge that I know a lot of different institutions are facing, is that going through this kind of a shutdown is impacting people so incredibly in their financial and their budgets, that once given the green light, are they able to hop back on it. And at this point, we're feeling very confident that when we're given the opportunity, we will be able to resume. One of the things I wanted to share that I'm also very proud of the organization for doing, specifically our board of directors, is that once we got the news that we had to temporarily close, our board voted unanimously and almost immediately to pay our part-time marine science instructors through the rest of the season for which they were scheduled, hoping.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it. It's really wonderful. Hoping that not only it supports them, but that it makes them able to get through this time just a little bit easier, but again, also makes them allowed to stay here. This is not an easy place to survive. And a lot of
it is not.
And a lot of our environmental educators, I'm so fearful, they piece together multiple jobs. And if you all of a sudden don't have employment, how are you going to be able to stay in Santa Cruz County? So we've as of right now, we're in touch with all of our part-time instructors. Everybody's still on the payroll, and we are ready for whenever we can get back into motion. And also, if we have some sort of hybrid of some in-person or some socially distanced and some continued virtual learning, we're prepared to do that too.
Well, it's a great opportunity for us to mention that you have a website, wonderful website, and I'm sure that people can go on the website and make a donation to O'Neill Sea Odyssey to help this great work along. And so make sure that you let our viewers know how they can do that, and maybe taking some time to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So folks who want to donate, and literally every single penny counts for us, it's just o'neillseaodyssey.org/donate. And your funds would not only be going to, helping us get through this present time. And a lot of conversations I've actually had with Catherine about this, Steve, has been related to the fact that, we think of environmental work as what are the word that I'm looking for? It's crucial, right? Like if we don't have a planet that's thriving, we don't have anything. But at the same time, we're not frontline workers in the crisis. And so trying to balance the fact that we know that funding needs to go to frontline relief, of course, but we also all need to be able to still exist once this pandemic has passed, so that we can continue providing these programs. So folks that are donating right now to the environmental nonprofits, you're really making sure that we're going to be able to continue to do this work for the long run, and it is so appreciated.
So now, of course, are you still staying in touch, through your website and through any other kind of electronic communication with your volunteers and potential volunteers?
Yes. So yes, we've been in touch with our volunteers during this time, and we've continued to have engagement with them. It's been interesting watching folks. Some folks who are very tech savvy and are already, regular users of Instagram and Facebook and all the social media platforms, and very regular users of websites and email communication. And then also having so many folks who, maybe weren't spending much time on those platforms, starting to get more comfortable and really bloom in the process. That's been cool to see. And so we've had some volunteers. For example, one of our volunteers, her name is Kathy Ballard. She would come in every single week and she would stuff all the folders for our students for every single trip that they went on.
Really?
She's wonderful, and she's a donor. She bakes our entire staff baked goods. She's just like the most glorious mother hen. So she would come in every week, and now we've been communicating via email, and she's been sending photos of what she finds when she does her beach scavenger hunts, of course, during the appropriate hours, not during 11 to 5.
Of course not.
But it's been really nice to have our volunteers and our interns and supporters share what they're doing while they're sheltering in place that keeps them inspired and connected to the ocean. Right. Different art projects, different poetry we've received. We received some really beautiful letters from students who just wanted to report out on what they missed about being able to be at Sea Odyssey. So a lot of people are still engaging with us, which we really appreciate. It's almost like they're just, daydreaming about when they get to have that unlimited connection to nature again. But I would like to say at the same time, some of them are really finding appreciation for things that they might not have otherwise, looking at their own yards, for example, and identifying plants and birds in their own backyard that they might have looked over had they not been, kind of stuck at home.
It's an interesting byproduct of the sheltering in place and social distancing that people are using, virtual formats very much more, and they're becoming more comfortable with them. I know of myself, I had really never used teleconferencing or Google Meets or anything like that, and now we're using it regularly and becoming more comfortable with it. I think that during this time, it serves to keep people together, to keep them connected, and I think that's very much what you do as an executive director for a nonprofit, is to really build community. The community you've built, you want to make sure that endures, that once we get past this, it'll be there ready for us to move forward.
I completely agree. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way you put it. It's almost like, I think a lot of our nonprofits are kind of cheerleading, being like the glue of being, I see so many groups doing it, and it always really inspires me of keeping hope alive and bringing folks together and whatever. And almost even like I think we're trying to be a little bit distracting too. We're like, okay, your parents are really busy and stressed out. Your teachers are trying to do this virtual learning thing with, some of the students have the equipment they need, some of them don't. And here's Sea Odyssey, and we're coming in and we're saying, here's a bunch of resources, and check this out. Isn't this cool? And hey, do you want to talk to one of us? We'll sit here on a computer screen with you for 45 minutes and we'll just geek out about the ocean. And whatever way that we can step in and also really remind people that, of course, COVID is incredibly tragic in so many ways, but it also is such a reminder of how important it is to be connected to our environment and our community and really be safe and healthy. And I think that people are seeing a lot of things come up as a result of this, and a lot of new conversations are being had that we wouldn't have had, I don't think, otherwise.
And I think you're right. It really serves to remind us, how precious and important things we have and the beauty of the places we live, and, kind of push outward with your vision to say, oh my gosh, I didn't take a look at this, as closely as I might have because I was so busy doing something else. Yeah. But now there's that opportunity, and I think your life becomes fuller just by that, so you can make it a positive. I know that Catherine, when I talked to her a week ago, it was amazing how positive she was, and I can see the positivity that you have, that the work will continue. We're excited about doing the work. We're finding new ways to do the work. And for us, that people who appreciate the work that Save Our Shores and Eugene's O'Neill Sea Odyssey and like-minded organizations do, it's really beautiful to know that community is still existing and being driven by people who are so passionate about it and are not getting down. They're continuing to keep their heads up and do the work as you are.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. That's so kind. You gotta look for silver linings for sure. It can't just all be doom and gloom. What's so cool too that I was thinking about before we started talking today was, typically we're serving 4th through 6th graders, right? And we're serving 4th through 6th graders about 210 to 215 classes because we got one boat, right? So it's not like we can just be like, everybody can come, even though we want to. But what this has done is it's really expanded our reach. We've had people say, hey, I've always thought your organization was cool, but I never, I wasn't in 4th through 6th grade at the time to go on the boat, and I wasn't eligible, or I live out of state or out of the county and in counties that you don't serve. But now I'm looking at all your curriculum and I'm watching the videos that you make. And so it's actually expanded in some ways it's contracted our reach. We're not actually able to serve the classes that we were going to serve this spring.
Yeah.
In other ways, it's expanded. And I've been trying to think of, it's really easy, I think, to feel like we're losing a lot of things in this process, but I've been trying to think of what we've gained. And that's for sure one of them. People inviting new people into the fold is always such a huge blessing.
And I'm thinking about, as we reflect on some of the things that we're missing during this time, I think it really whets people's appetite for wanting to do it when you come back, and be able to come back and do those days of teaching that you do that are so important and so wonderful, to have people in to do the whole day that you host, and really give them an idea of what it is that you do and how important the work is.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think I've been feeling it since the beginning. So many of us are feeling really cooped up. I feel cooped up.
Yeah, amen.
I can only imagine, I can only imagine kids with so much energy, just like how are they doing this right now? And it's such a testament to their teachers and parents. But I think when we come back, it's environmental education and outdoor experience is more important than anything. People are, I think, always appreciative of the experience of coming out on the boat, but I think it'll be that much sweeter after having, experienced this kind of this shelter in place.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of being tantalized by that prospect. I know, again, when I talked to Catherine, we were talking about, beach and river cleanups, and I myself had a day off, and I was out walking, by the beach. We can't really get onto the beach. I could be surfing, I guess, but there's that tantalizing saying, geez, I want to be out there. I want to appreciate what it is. I want to do what I can to preserve this. And maybe that's an opportunity for people to think, well, I'm not just out here and enjoying it, sit on the beach. What can I do to make sure that this is preserved, and make sure that in perpetuity we have these wonderful gifts?
Yep, I agree. And I also feel like that's been something that it's been at the top of people's minds as they think about what they've missed and what they've lost during this time. Is just how lucky are we that we have access to this, or there are definitely many members of our community that don't have access to this, and how can we make sure that they do, because it is so crucial. And there are, it's also a cool thing during Earth Day. We did Earth Day virtual, right? Like everyone,
right? Yeah,
virtual, and you are like the
yeah.
But yeah, we had so many people who were doing projects in their own home to support conservation, and sharing that online and sharing it through social media. And so people are still stepping up for that call for conservation, for sure.
Yeah, and I do think, as again, a byproduct of this sheltering in place and social distancing and whatnot, in some ways, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it's bringing us closer together. It's giving us common goals and common interests and common hopes and dreams that they're all kind of pursuing together. That maybe we're just done family to family or group to group, and now we're really doing as a whole community. I know how important, as I said, Odyssey and Save Our Shores are to our community, and have been and continue to be. So that's the kind of thing that we look for, and it kind of sustains us. It gives people like myself really hope, and that's why we love doing programs like this and talking to people like yourself. And I miss not seeing you anyway, so now I can.
Yeah, it's always good to see you, even though it's not in person. It's so nice to get to see your face.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of more minutes or so. What would you like to tell people about what O'Neill Odyssey is going to look like moving forward, and what they can kind of expect from you and your staff and the program as we move into the summer and, of course, into fall?
Yeah, I would say, for folks to just continue to stay engaged with their environmental nonprofits, Odyssey being one of them. We're not at the point yet where we have a publicly shareable plan, just because we don't know yet.
Right, of course, yeah.
But I would really encourage folks to follow us on our various platforms, on our social media. It's often where we're posting things, instantaneously once we've got a stance on something. So that's just at O'Neill C Odyssey on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Of course,
wonderful. Yeah.
Our website as well, o'neillcodyssey.org. Folks can reach out to me at any point. My email is Rachel, Rachel, at o'neillcodyssey.org. And continue to support, if you are able, continue to support your environmental nonprofits and frontline essential workers, because we're all essential people. And I think for the folks that have been incredibly generous in this community, which there are so many, to continue to give to your environmental nonprofits and support the COVID relief efforts, because that's really what's going to bring us all through this. And yeah, just keep hope alive. Share your positive ocean stories with us. Reach out to me at any point if you got a cool picture of a bird or anything that you want to break up my day and fill up my email box with all of the reasons that you love the Monterey Bay. I am so ready for that.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing that the community can do to support you and keep this great work going. Once again, it's Rachel Kippen, Executive Director, O'Neill C. Odyssey. Wonderful work, a really good friend of not only CTV, but the entire community, and I'm proud to say myself as well, one of my very favorite people. But you give that website one more time and let people know how they can get a hold of you and connect with O'Neill C. Odyssey.
Thank you, Steve. So it's www.o'neillcodyssey.org. And I'm just going to spell out O'Neill C. Odyssey. It's ONEILLSEAODYSSEY.org. And my email is Rachel, that's RACHEL, at ONEILLSEAODYSSEY.org.
And Rach, you win the spelling bee. Lovely to see you, my dear. Listen, we'll see you very soon again. Thanks for being here. Rachel Kippen, Executive Director, O'Neill C. Odyssey. I've been Steve Place. This has been Nonprofit Spotlight. Tune in again when we have another opportunity to highlight great work that our community nonprofits are doing, like O'Neill C. Odyssey. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.